All right, welcome back to Boring Reviews. Nick here, and I'm going to give you my solo review for the rest of the Forgotten Army series. Now, I have episode 1 review on the channel. I was experimenting episode by episode, and even though it got a decent amount of views, just under 1,000, I read the comments, I heard you loud and clear. A lot of you did not really care too much about this show, so I thought I'm going to go right to giving my review when I'm done with the show. Finished the show last night, and here are my thoughts. Here we go. Boring Reviews. Before I get into my thoughts on the Forgotten Army episodes 2 through 5, this is Boring Reviews. We have lots of videos on Indian content, American content. Just did a reaction to Fast and Furious 9. That's on the channel. Check that out. We have lots of playlists. If you're new to Boring Reviews and you like what you see in this video, consider watching some others. And if you like what you see there, maybe you want to subscribe and help us out to grow Boring Review Nation, as Gabe likes to say. So, also, go ahead to check out our Patreon if you want to support Boring Reviews. And if you want your requests heard first, then go there. And I promise you, we look at those requests before we look at any other requests. We do answer some requests in the comments section. With that out of the way, let's get into the Forgotten Army episodes 2 through 5. Now, I'm not going to go episode by episode like we did with Sacred Games. That was kind of a special type of review. But I'm just going to give you my thoughts overall on the show. Overall, let me start with the positive. I liked the song that they kept playing a lot throughout the show. It was like a romantic type rock ballad, but it was very inspirational, especially the first several times I listened to it. I think it's a great song. I really love this overall score for this show. The score, I felt, was above average, way above average for just a regular Amazon Prime or Netflix series, and so I was really impressed with that. I really liked most of the act, especially from our two main soldiers. We have the actor Sunny Kaushal, who played Lieutenant Sodhi. He did a fantastic job. He was my favorite actor in the entire show. And then we also had Rohit Chaudhary, who played Arshad. Both of those characters did a great job. M.K. Raina, who played Old Sodhi, he threw me out a lot in the first episode, but I did get used to him as the show went on. I didn't mind him at all. I thought he did an admirable job. He just wasn't my favorite. And then also the actresses who played Maya, we have Shahvari Wang and Rasama T.J. Banu. They both did a great job of portraying their characters. I feel like the women characters in this show did an excellent job of portraying that they wanted to play their part, and they had different motivations. Okay, Rasama had her motivation for getting a little bit of revenge, but also kind of becoming her own woman, and Maya had her own motivation. But they did a great job portraying that, and the writing was good enough for me to feel like I believed those characters, and they brought enough to it. Definitely a lot of passion and a lot of emotion into the parts that they were playing. Again, I loved Sunny, who played Sodhi. He did a great job. I want to see him in more things. I want to see him get a chance to do bigger and better things, because he looks like he's an instant star in my opinion. He stole the show every scene he was in. But at the same time, and I got my names right here, Rohit did a great job as his partner in crime. He held his own in those scenes, and they were a great dynamic duo in my opinion. I also love the battle scenes. The battle scenes were fantastic, not just in episode 1, but throughout the show. There was a lot of explosions. There was a lot camera right in the action, so we feel like we were right there, like we were almost standing there with our weapons, seeing a comrade get blown up or go to his demise, so to speak, and die. The explosions were great. There's lots of limbs. There's one scene where a soldier is flying back. I think it's Arshad's character, where his arm, spoiler alert, is been blown off, and so you just see the stump as he's slowly falling back. All the action was superb. The set pieces for the action scenes were great. It reminded me of things that I've seen on the big screen in war movies. They spared no expense in that department. And I also really liked the story that I had a big problem with in the first episode. I liked the 1996 present day story with the older Sodhi and with his nephew or great nephew. And I really liked his friend character, Ronnie, who was played by Paloma Manapa. Paloma's where I went to high school. That's kind of funny. Beautiful actress, by the way. I liked her character. I liked the connection that we have with Junkie at the end that we find out. And all that was good. I actually did really like going back and forth. It was kind of a nice change of pace. I just felt like the transition, the timing that they went back and forth was not the best timing. Like, why would you choose this time to go back in the past when something seriously just happened or is about to happen in the present, and we want to just close that up, another 20 seconds of that scene so we can get a little bit of closure there before we go back to see what the soldiers are doing in the Forgotten Army in the INA. And so that was kind of an issue for me. Now it's for me to go into the things I did not love at all. I felt like that song that I had mentioned I liked as a strength, that song was played so many times. Every time the show wanted the audience to feel something, they played that song. And sometimes it was 4 or 5 times in an episode. There's only 5 episodes here, but it was overused. And it felt like it was every time kind of begging for me to feel it, even when I don't feel like the scene had earned my emotion to feel that. I felt like the overall production was lacking what I'm used to now in 2020, and what I'm used to seeing on either a streaming service or on television or in the big screen. I felt like there was parts where I felt that the production was not near where it should be. I felt like the writing was not the strongest. When they're doing their awesome motivational chants of onward to Delhi, onward to Delhi, I was feeling that the first few times, but then it seemed like the song, they just kept coming back to it because they didn't have a strong enough scene and they wanted to bring in the audience once again. I just felt like those parts were just kind of forced and not really earned, if that makes a lot of sense. I did not love how with the action that I did like, how every scene was an explosion, how every scene pushed someone back 20 feet. I've never been in war before. I've never seen people be exploded, obviously. But that's just not on par with what we see in other action films. I don't think a smaller explosion or whatever is going to cause you to fly 20 feet every single time. And that just happened every single time. These guys are getting thrown and they're getting back up and fighting. Sodi's character gets probably blown up 4 or 5 times, and he keeps going forward. He gets stabbed with the bayonets a few times, and he keeps going forward. I did love the bayonets, by the way. I love, for some reason, history buff. I love bayonets, and I love that they applied it into this. I like the struggle, but I felt like sometimes the struggle was too long. In episode, I think it was episode 4, they really focused on that struggle of them starving and having no supplies and walking forever, it seemed like. That it just seemed like it just went on too long. And for an episode that's only 5, for a show that's only 5 episodes, we want to move it along just a little faster or give us a few more episodes. But those are the things I had a huge problem with. I guess that kind of underweighs the things that I liked about it. Overall, this was not my favorite show. This is not something I'm going to be really recommending to other people if they ask me about. Now, again, I'm an American. I'm going to recommend those things that I really love, because not a lot of American audiences know how awesome Indian cinema is. This is not a show that I'm going to run out and tell all my friends about, like I've talked about with Gully Boy or Andadun or many other things that I've seen. I was just so blown away. Sacred Games, and talk to other people about. This show was just okay for me. It's not as bad as how some people felt in the comment section. I respect your opinion 100%, but I didn't dislike it that much. I did enjoy that each episode was a short run time, so I wasn't really committing too much of my time to this show. I enjoyed having an episode every single night. I would watch it, give me something to do. I really enjoyed that. Overall, it was a pretty good show. I learned a whole lot. I learned a whole lot about the struggles going on in Singapore with the Indian population, and a whole lot about the INA, the Indian National Army. I didn't know any of that. And I've been told in the comment section for months now about Bose, and who is the second leader of the INA, and he's mentioned a little bit in this movie. I know for a lot of the audience, they would have liked to see more of his story. And I know there's a movie out there that I've got to check out. I will at one point. But I did enjoy the history of it. I love history. And so learning about the INA, I thought it was tragic, but I thought it was beautiful that these men and women stood up for what they felt was right. I can't imagine how tough that would be to go at war against your own people, because you're going to have millions of Indian soldiers in the British Army during World War II, and by joining the INA, you're agreeing to, if it comes to it, to fighting against your comrades from India, who you have no problem with, but you are trying to fight for Indian independence. It's an idea that makes sense. The Japanese says, join our side, and if we win, we'll give you independence from Britain. But if you're not going to help us out, how are we going to make that happen? So I understand why they made that decision, but if it was me, it would be very, very tough to make that decision. I think it's cheap to say that they're an automatic traitor, because at the end of the day, they want the same thing that their comrades who are calling them a traitor wants. They want independence. I understand this is a show. I understand it's not a history textbook. I understand they probably took some liberties. But I did like learning about that. My hat does go off to those brave men and women who did that, not for the reason of just killing people, but to earn their independence. And everyone, I point to myself, but everyone wants their independence. Everybody wants freedom. I point to myself because as a history buff, I've learned a lot about the American Revolution, the fight against the British and America, the colonists going away from Britain and earning their independence. And, as a kid in America, you learn about that all the time, and you love the fact that America fought for their independence and won in the 1700s. Declaration of Independence, all that stuff. And so when I watch a show like this and it's men and women from a different country who are wanting the same thing, I love that and I applaud that. I think it's a difficult subject, though. I really do. If you are an Indian and you're looking at the Indian National Army, I'm not sure how well upon it is looked at or how well it is received. It mentioned in the show that there was a lot of sympathies for the INA, so I don't think it was a hated thing. But it would be interesting. It would be tough to figure out, okay, these people tried to kill our own statesmen, but they were fighting for the same thing. So I thought that was an important story to tell, because at the end of the day, the INA didn't really accomplish much. But when you look at history, I'm sure that it had a huge impact. I'm sure it made a lot of people in the country think, why would these people do this unless they're fighting for our independence? And maybe we should fight more for our independence. And then that's kind of trickles, and that's a chain reaction. And then you have other events that happen for India to eventually, not much longer actually after that, to earn its independence from Britain. So that part I really enjoyed. So overall, my overall grade for The Forgotten Army for episodes 2 through 5, for the entire show for that matter, I'm going to give this show a B-, because I love history. That kind of puts it above the C territory. I don't think it's a great show. I do agree with a lot of you on that point, but I don't think it's a terrible show either. I just think as an American being introduced to Indian cinema, why would I start with this? But it's new, it's relevant. We always want the channel to grow, and so I thought I'd give it a chance. And I'm not disappointed that I did. I just am not nearly as excited to talk about this as I was with Sacred Games, or I am about Family Man once Gabe finishes it, because I can't wait to talk about Family Man. But, as always, thanks for all the requests. Thanks for all the love. Go ahead and give us some more of those requests. If you really want your requests heard, join that Patreon once again, and check out some other videos that we have coming out in the future. And until next time, adios.